All right. Well, good afternoon, Turning Point. It's great to be with you this afternoon. Many of you may not have met me yet or heard of our campaign. My name's Ryan Binkley. I'm a businessman from Dallas, Texas, and a pastor as well. And God put a message in my heart for our country, and I'm excited to share with you for a few minutes what I believe is God's heart for our nation. Several years ago, the Lord spoke to me that He's got a great plan for our nation. He began talking to me about this journey. You know, our nation was created by God to be this lamppost of freedom so we could enjoy a foundation of freedom that's protected by liberty, where we have freedom of the press and freedom of speech, and we've seen those things being attacked. But also freedom to gather like we're doing here today, and freedom to talk and to converse and even protest peacefully. And we see all the effects of socialism and Marxism begin to attack and dampen that lamppost of freedom. Haven't you seen that today? We've seen also this incredible amount of debt and corruption begin to attack, I would call it this light post of liberty. And here we are at Turning Point. I actually think it's a prophetic moment that it's the past time. But how many would believe it's a turning point time for America? I do believe that. It's past time, but it's time more than now that we turn our attention, I believe, back to God and back to each other to solve our biggest problems. We've never been more divided in my lifetime than we are right now, except maybe when I was 5 or 6 years old. In the 70s, if you remember that time, we just came out of Watergate. We just came out of the Vietnam War. There was difficult times. Patriotism was at all-time low. And that's the way it is today. Only 39% of America thinks that patriotism is important. And here we are as a country and a party that's really, really broken. In fact, it's the goal of the other party to make sure the executive office, regardless of where it is, fails today. And the reason is because we're so polar opposites in what we believe. But I believe God has a message for the Republican Party, and this is what I'm sharing. It's time for us to actually lead and broaden the tent of our party, to take our freedom message into a new way. In 1989, I had a chance to work with IBM. How do you guys remember IBM, the big company of old, right? We thought we were pretty good, and back then, Big Blue is what we called ourselves. And I showed computers to college students at the University of Texas in Austin. And that was my job, and we always thought we were great. We had new computers, pretty cool, until this company called Apple came around. And darn it, I had to have 2 people at my table. They'd have 20 people at their table. And you know what Apple did? They started thinking about the next generation. They started looking ahead. And this is what I really feel for our country and for our party, that it's time for us to start looking ahead to the future about what are we going to do and how are we going to relate to urban America today? How are we going to relate to college students? I'm so glad. How many young people we have in today here, under 30, 25 years old? You're refreshing. My wife and I did young adult ministry for 17 years before we started our church, and I got a message for young people today, and I'll get to that in a second. But it's time for us to start thinking about the next generation. So in our platform, we have 4 key things that I'm actually calling the Republican Party to start thinking big in. I'm running for president not because of a small vision. I'm not trying to pull the party 3 feet over to the right. In fact, you got a lot of candidates that can do that. I actually believe we have to lead a culture revolution that turns our country back to God and back to each other again. But how can we do that? How many want that? But we're broken. And it's going to take a revival. It's going to take an economic revival, an awakening, and a spiritual revival for us to accomplish this. But here's some of the ideas that I have for we can do that. First of all, we have to get back as Republicans this message of who we are as fiscal conservatives. In fact, it's been Reagan. How many would like to see that again? I heard Mayor Swears talk about that, but it's been 40 years since a Republican president has said these words, I want to balance the budget. Oh, we need it so bad. You know, our next generation is counting on this. This is what I really felt. Right now, we're on track to leave our kids in the next 8 years, 9 years, about $50 trillion in debt. That's the path we're on. But the Republican Party, if we're honest with ourselves, if I talk about the elephant in the room, our symbol of our party, talking about things we don't like to talk about, Republicans have spent as much money in the last 40 years as Democrats just on different things. It's time that we change that. I'm actually putting together a 7-year plan to balance the budget. You guys remember a guy named Joseph in the Bible when he saw good times and lean times? And this is what we have to do. I actually want to put together a 7-year plan that we can, by the end of that 7 years, we'll be able to make the first payment on the principal of our debt in over 40 years. How many of you guys would like to make a principal payment? So we're going to reduce earmarks. We're going to get at wasteful spending. We're actually going to put our country on a path to prosperity because it's time to prune. As a business person, I don't have to cut everything. I just have to cut off the things that don't work and invest in things that do work. And we need to take a business person's approach to that right here at our federal government. I also want to lead this. Yeah, go ahead. We need to do it. It's going to bring prosperity back to America. It's going to bring growth for the next generation. And more than that, it's going to bring an opportunity for our kids, because I believe this: if we don't do this, and my generation doesn't fix this, 50 years from now, we'll be known as the generation, I think, that prospered the most, but sacrificed the least. What have we sacrificed for the next generation? The greatest generation sacrificed their lives for freedom. This is our opportunity to do this for our next generation. How many guys want to contribute to that? I want to start a Republican-led healthcare system. We saw what Obamacare did. That was no good, right? But how about a Republican-led system? What would that look like? Well, I've got a whole plan for Republican-led transformation of healthcare that does a couple things. First of all, it puts the patients back in charge. It gets rid of the oligopolies and monopolies in the healthcare exchanges. It requires price visibility so you know what you're paying for when you get there. That'd be good. It also gets rid of the patent protection we have for big pharma, because right now we spend twice as much on healthcare as any other developed nation in the world. And it's time for us to stop funding the globe in healthcare. And that's what we're doing today. You can look at our patent laws. They go 36, 40 years, and we are funding the world in big pharma, and we have to stop. The other thing I want to do is do something amazing in the Republican Party. I actually want us to lead in a new era. I want us to start thinking like Apple and not IBM. How are we going to grow our party? How are we going to connect to people in new ways? I believe it's time that we lead on immigration, and I'll close in this, leading on an urban renewal and a revival movement with education. So immigration is one. We have to close the border. How many would agree with that? We have to secure it. President Trump did a good job of getting that started, but we actually can't just do half of it in Texas. We have to go from Texas all the way to the Pacific coast, because if we do not, a guy named Gavin Newsom is going to put a big welcome sign, and fentanyl is going to come in, cartels are going to be welcomed, everything's the corruption that we see today is still going to be there. That's why it has to go from the Pacific coast to the Gulf Coast for the border. How many would agree? That's going to take billions of dollars, technology people, and I'm recommending that the Republicans lead in this way with a comprehensive plan. It's going to take a budget to do that. And unless we get 60 senators and have a supermajority to overturn a filibuster, it's going to take leadership. And this is what I believe. If we lead well, they'll vote for us. There are so many legal immigrants. I pastor a multicultural church, legal immigrants that vote here today, and they'd said, Ryan, if you would lead them this way, if you would do what I would say this: Jesus pays attention to the widow, the orphan, the poor, and the immigrant or the stranger at the grave. I'm not for illegal immigration. I'm just saying if we will lead in this discussion, we'll win the hearts of America. We'll lead for the next 20 to 30 years. We cannot ignore this issue. The last thing I'm standing for is actually an urban renewal environment. Think of this. Right now, what's the Republican message to the poor? Socialism's pretty compelling if you don't know where next week is coming from. If you're struggling financially and you have a food shortage problem, which we do in America, and you don't know how you're going to survive. Well, socialism is free healthcare, free food, free tuition. What's the Republican alternative? Many times our message is, hey, you can do and become anything. Good luck. My plan is to start a volunteer movement of corporations, churches, and charities to get in and do community centers for an after-school program that educates kids on how to do this amazing thing, learn to read and write and do math again. That's what we have to do. We have to end the poverty wage gap, but that's out there by teaching trades again. Many people aren't going to go to college, but this is what we do. Start teaching them how to be plumbers, electricians, craftsmen again. And this is the big thing. We have to believe in God again. We have to believe that God's got a plan again. We have to believe that He can get us out of this division. How many have faith that God's got a plan? He can do it. I was in Iowa on my way to a town hall. I got stuck in mud. There's a lot of dirt roads, and we were short on time. I was speaking with the governor at night. They prayed for rain. It came. I saw cornfields for miles. I didn't know how I was going to get out of there. If a tow truck was there, we still couldn't get out. I stepped out of the car, and I was 3 inches in mud. And I thought, I'm speaking with the governor in 4 hours. How's this going to happen, God? One of my friends walked to the top of a hill, and a pickup truck came by, and there was a woman named Faith. She said, can I help you? She sent a friend over with a tractor, and the tractor pulled us out. I made it on time to that meeting. 12 people stayed 45 minutes late. That's what I love about Iowans. They're amazing. But I made it on time that night. I bought these shoes at the town square in Shelby County for $95. Contributed to the Iowa economy. But this is what I'm telling America. It's going to take faith. I had faith that day. It's going to take us believing in God to come out of this division, to see the plan that God has for our country. I'm asking you to do this. Believe again. Don't get caught up in the disruption of division. Let's believe God. I believe in God. I believe in America. I believe in you. And I'm asking you to believe in me. If you would go to our website and pray for us and pray that God's will would be done in this election. I believe that God's got a great plan. I'd appreciate any support. You know the requirements that are needed. If you want to see us begin to speak this message with greater clarity, I would appreciate your support. God bless you. Thank you very much.